Let's start with the number one team in the land on Saturday, Eli. The UConn Huskies go on the road, sort of, to Madison Square Garden on St. John's. As a Syracuse alum, I'm well aware of how much UConn fans pack MSG on any given night when the Huskies are in there. So 12 o'clock noon tip-off Eastern time on Fox. So you mentioned, or I mentioned, that UConn is number one in the AP poll. You have them at number 3 in your power rankings. St. John's still unranked, but you have them 19th. You shared in the Discord this week a Final Four futures bet on St. John's and Rick Pitino at 22-1. For this particular game, Haslametrics makes UConn around a 3.5 point road favorite here, over under of 145. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you betting UConn, or you betting St. John's to be a Final Four team at a good number before this game happened means that you're pretty confident in their chances of keeping this close and maybe springing an upset.
Yeah, they're going to have to. And it's not like their NCAA tournament hopes are on the line, but this is a pretty critical game. You have two matchups in DePaul and Georgetown. So 4 overall between two of the worst teams in not only the Big East, but among Power 6, Power 7 conferences in college basketball. So it's not like St. John's has the most arduous schedule here down the stretch in conference play, but still a pretty critical game. And I make this closer to UConn -2, believe it or not. So just kind of setting the scene here. The Huskies won over Providence, closer game than it may have appeared, even though the spread was around 13.5, just because Providence missed a ton of free throws, I think in the double-digit range. And then St. John's, that game was probably closer than it may have seemed like when you look at the final box score, just because it was around a one-possession game with 2-3 minutes to go, and Xavier got some bounces and offensive rebound, which led to an Ovalari 3. And basketball gods kind of on their side after losing by 40 plus to the Huskies. So that's kind of the way it swings sometimes in college basketball. I'm still very high on this St. John's team. And to your point, I have a Final Four future on the Johnnies. I wrote that up. You can read the breakdown over at thelines.com. Just some cliff notes, though. Rick Pitino's first year in Queens, obviously, started 7-3 in non-conference play. You lose 3 straight games over the last 2-3 weeks in conference play, but 2 by 1 possession and a BS call. I'll keep it on the more PG side of things for our listeners and viewers.
Show, Eli.
Yes, exactly. And that loss at Creighton, I thought Dingle got fouled on an offensive rebound, turned last second shot in the mid-range. I know you're not a huge fan of mid-range shots, but probably should have gotten to the line as a result. But St. John's is starting to come together, even with that loss at Xavier at the right time. And keep in mind, this is a team that lacked 0 minutes continuity coming into the year, bottom 30 overall in college basketball. Maybe 0 was a bit of an exaggeration, and a top 15 schedule when it comes to strength of schedule so far this season. But veteran-laden team, kind of similar to St. Bonaventure in that sense, but more so, and also went through a COVID stretch over the last week or 2 weeks, with Dingle having it, missing the Marquette loss and Villanova win, and Pitino also dealing with COVID during that Seton Hall loss, didn't coach in that game. So a lot has gone against St. John's, so that's why I kind of saw this as a buy low opportunity. And you also couple that with this defense really starting to implement that matchup zone. It morphs into a man in the half court, and they press. Their press ranks in the 98th percentile per synergy. Not that UConn won't be able to deal with that press, just because even though they rank bottom in the bottom half of the Big East Conference in turnover percentage, they haven't necessarily turned the ball over a ton, had a lot of miscues against turnover forcing havoc-led defenses. But the one area I think St. John's will be able to have an advantage is on the offensive glass, whether it was UConn's first game against St. John's, when, keep in mind, the Johnnies easily could have won that game if not for a defensive rebound that led to an offensive rebound for the Huskies in the final 2-3 minutes. The Georgetown game and both Xavier games for UConn, despite one of those being a blowout, they have allowed double-digit offensive rebounds and then some in all of those games. Like I said, I'm high on the Red Storm. And guard play has been elite for this team, despite the results, with Denise Jenkins and Dingle, who I mentioned. So if St. John's can control the glass and generate those second chance shots, I think they win this game outright.
That's exactly where I saw a potential opportunity for St. John's to win this game outright too, Eli. I'm glad you brought it up. Just to put some more numbers on it, UConn is 8th in Big East play in offensive rebound percentage allowed. And it's not just that St. John's generates offensive rebounds, it's that they convert them too when they get them. They're number 1 in the country in second chance conversion percentage if you look at that stat over at Haslametrics. So well taken point there by you. The other side of this too is that, you know, UConn is a really good outside shooting team. They're number 1 in Big East play and 3-point field goal percentage, but St. John's is number 1 in defending threes in conference play. So they are well equipped to take away an offensive strength that UConn presents in this game. Now, obviously there's still going to be some concerns for the Johnnies here. And for me, it's ironically, as good as they are at generating offensive rebounds when they have possession, for whatever reason, they're poor at allowing offensive rebounds. They're 288th in that category. And UConn is top 15 in the country in offensive rebound percentage. So it's a weird split that way. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me why you'd be really good in that area at one end, but poor at the other. It's almost like a lack of discipline. And also, I'm always going to hate when a team like UConn, who ranks top 40 in rim and three rate, is playing a team like St. John's, who's 323rd in rim and three rate. So if you're going to have that low of a rim and three rate, it's almost like you better get on the offensive glass if you're going to try and contend with this. So I think there's enough here. I agree with you. Just final conclusion for me. I think there is enough here for St. John's to keep this close. I'm going to wait. You never know how these spreads are going to move when they come out. There's been just a ton of love on home teams in conference play. You know, even if there's a big number next to that team, like UConn with their rankings. So it wouldn't surprise me if the early money comes in on St. John's here and we actually get a worse line than plus 3.5 here. So you may have to get this at open and just keep an eye on it. But I'm with you. I think it would probably be St. John's or nothing, at least in this spot.